Yeah. We are back. And we are black. That is right. Here on Straight Out of the Cannon, it is 7:35 in the PM while I sit here in the dark. Oh yeah. I take being black very seriously. I don't even like lights around me. I'm just messing with you guys. Welcome back to Issues and Answers Straight Out of the Cannon. Hope you appreciate my main man, Casey Haley, one of the last real singers you're going to hear who didn't use auto-tune. None of that auto-tune business with my man Casey and his brother JoJo. None of that. They came from the church. All the great singers used to come from the church, and that's a big part of the reason that you don't see those type of singers anymore. But at the top of the show, folks, I actually posited the question, what is the biggest form of theft in America? What is the biggest form of theft in America? Is it car theft? Is it burglary? Is it bank robberies? What about retail theft? I'll wait. I'll let you guys come up with it. It is wage theft. That is right, folks. It is absolutely wage theft. That is the...
What do you think is the largest form of theft in the United States?
Probably identity.
Financial.
Merchandise theft?
Corporate.
Or taxes.
Tax evasion.
Yeah, I would say robbery. Fraud.
I'm going to say car theft.
Car theft.
So what if I told you it was wage theft?
Wage theft. Employers not paying their workers.
So it can look like a lot of things, like maybe you work overtime and so they're not paying you time and a half. They have you come 30 minutes early, but they don't pay you for the 30 minutes early, that kind of thing. It's about $50 billion annually that employers steal from workers.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Well, that's a lot.
Isn't it a lot of money?
That's a lot.
In 2019, it was estimated that the total cost of all robberies in the United States was $482 million. So the total cost of wage theft is about 100 times that.
Definitely sounds like a problem.
Especially undocumented people or people that have records or, people that are blackballed, that's terrible.
Yep, you hear it in the video. Wage theft is the biggest form of theft in America. Let me tell you guys a little story, okay? That happened right here in the good old city of Gary, Indiana, the greatest city in all the world. Yeah, that Gary, Indiana. When I was just out of high school, I started working at, let's just say, a local establishment. I'll just say a local establishment. I think I was about 19 or 20 years old at this point. And so I worked at this establishment. And my boss would call my house sometimes 6:30 in the morning and say, Scott, we need you right now. You got to come to work. You got to come to work right now. We're short on workers. You got to come to work. And then I would come to work. And then when I'd show up, he'd say, don't clock in. And I go, wait, I'm at work. Why don't you want me to clock in? He'd just say, don't clock in. He said, you can share in the tips after the first shift. So the first shift was from 7:30 to 1:30. And the second shift was from 1:30 to 7:30. So I end up working from 7:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the evening off the clock. And he'd say, you can share in the tips. at 1:30, because after each shift, we split the tips. Now, there'd be a lot of days I'd show up to work and I'd work from 7:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon. And at the end of that shift, there might be $5 in that tip jar. And it's got to be split between 4 people. Yeah. 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 So after about 7 hours of working, my take home would be about, I guess, $1.25 after working 7 hours, 6 hours. That ain't right. That is not right. That ain't right. So what that is called wage theft. But what my boss did not know, what he didn't know, is that my mom used to be an employment specialist. She specifically worked to help people get jobs, and specifically help to, I guess, help people learn how to act on the job and you know, tell them their rights on the job. So I tell my mom that, well, my boss called me to work today at 7:30, and he told me to just split the tips at the end of the shift. So now I only got $1.25 from that first shift. And my mom told me, you know that's illegal, right? And me being 18 or 19 years old at this point, I had no idea that this was illegal. Not at all. All I knew is that I needed the job. That's it. And so he let me clock in for the second shift. So I'd work from 7:30 to 7:30. That's 12 hours. And I would only be getting paid for the second 6 hours as opposed to the first 6 hours. So it'd be $1.25 from that first shift, that first 6 hours I worked, which is about 20 cents an hour. That's worse than prison. I think prisoners make more than 20 cents an hour. Now I come to think of it. And then the rest of the shift, I would make my standard $5.15 an hour, because that I believe was the minimum wage at the time was $5.15 an hour. So that just goes to show you how wage theft can work here in this country. Every year, $50 billion is stolen from American workers. 50 billion with a B. Yes. Yes.
Money, money, money.
That is a lot of money. So 50 billion is stolen by bosses. In comparison, the FBI estimates that the total value of robberies a year to be about 500 million. Approximately 482 million. So the bosses are stealing 100 times more from their workers than people who are robbing your house, robbing your car, and everything else are put together. You still wonder why nobody wants to work anymore? Huh? You still asking that question? Ooh, people just don't want to work anymore. No, people don't want to be robbed. People don't want to be exploited. And in the post-Reagan world, especially, corporations have been able to exploit their workers because of deregulation and a lack of oversight on the industries that we have in this country. In the 10 most populous states, we find that in those states, 2.4 million workers lose $8 billion a year. That's an average of $3,300 per year for year-round workers to minimum wage violations. So that's nearly a quarter of their earned wages. I was one of those people. I was a minimum wage worker making $5.15 an hour, having like a whole shift stolen from me multiple times a week. This form of wage theft affects 17% of low-wage workers, with workers in all demographic categories being cheated out of pay. Workers suffering minimum wage violations are underpaid an average of $64 per week. Good God. Nearly 1/4 of their weekly earnings. This means a victim who works year-round is losing on average $3,300 per year while receiving only $10,500 in annual wages. Good Lord. Good Lord. Losing $3,300 a year out of $10,000 when you're supposed to be making about $13,000 a year is out and out blatantly criminal. Young workers, women, people of color, and immigrant workers are more likely than other workers to be paid less than the minimum wage, but this is primarily because they are more likely than other workers to be in low-wage jobs. In general, low-wage workers experience minimum wage violations at high rates across demographics categories, and that was the category I was in. I was young and a person of color. So they felt like they could rob me, and they did. Between 2017 and 2020, $3.2 billion in stolen wages were recovered by the U.S. Department of Labor, state labor departments, and attorney generals, and through class and collective action litigation. So thank God for lawsuits. I wish I would have filed a lawsuit, but this is probably too long ago now. There are numerous forms of wage theft, from employers not compensating workers for time worked, violating minimum wage and overtime laws, misclassifying employees as independent contractors, not providing legally required meal breaks, confiscating worker tips, or illegally taking deductions from workers' wages. Wage theft violators include some of the largest companies in this country. So it's not like this was a small company I worked for, just a individual who ran a certain service business. I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say what, but because this was a long time ago. But Amazon actually paid $18 million in November 2022 to settle a wage theft class action lawsuit in Oregon, the largest in the state's history, and paid a $61 million fine in 2021 over allegations of stealing tips from Amazon Flex drivers. Can we, for a second, talk about how much of a plantation Amazon is? Good God. Amazon actually went through its workers, have burned through so many workers over the last decade that they've actually run out of people who could work at Amazon because they worked them so hard while stealing their money, paying them less than adequate wages, and also, keeping them on a quota system that's so strict that people are peeing in bottles. Their workers pee in bottles in order to make their quotas. That is horrific. Construction contractors also have a notorious reputation for wage theft violations, often affecting immigrant workers, exploiting loopholes to avoid paying wage theft claims, such as shutting down weaknesses and reopening under a different business filing. I mean, it's not really funny, but that is basically how the system goes. That is how this system goes. So don't go around again. Stop going around telling people about how nobody wants to work anymore. Our system is a system based on pure exploitation, wage theft, sending jobs overseas, importing illegal immigrants in order to to drive down wages, destroying labor unions so that people don't have rights on their jobs. That is the system. And again, who keeps enforcing this system? The people you people vote for. The Republicans, the Democrats. Hell, this is a situation in which they've both been in cahoots. NAFTA was Ronald Reagan's baby. Bill Clinton brought it to life. Republicans wanted to get rid of welfare and wanted to destroy welfare and other social services from the 1970s on. Bill Clinton gave us welfare reform and destroyed it in 1996. Richard Nixon starts normalizing relations with China in the 70s. Bill Clinton permanently normalizes trade with China in the 1990s, which cost us millions of jobs. Richard Nixon starts the war on drugs to disrupt black communities in the 1970s. Bill Clinton signs the Clinton crime bill written by Joe Biden in the 1990s. Joe Biden writes the Patriot Act. George W. Bush signs it into law in the 21st century. This is what they do. Both parties, the system, whether it's the militarism, the prison industrial complex, the exploitation of workers, the two-tiered legal system, all of it comes from the two-party system. Or should I say the two-party duopoly? It's not a two-party system. I had to correct somebody about that recently. Oh, we have a two-party system. No, we have a two-party duopoly. The two parties conspire to keep anybody from being able to compete with them. But we don't have a two-party system. The Republican Party started off as a third party. Remember? To end slavery. That was the whole point. So no, we do not indeed have a two-party system. We have a two-party duopoly in which the two parties use legal and illegal means to prevent anybody else from competing with them. And then they say, well, there's no viable third party. Well, yeah, you guys have destroyed any opportunity for a third party. That's why you guys are literally suing to take people off of ballots in much of the country. And so, folks, things are not completely hopeless. Things are definitely not completely hopeless. We have to stay completely vigilant and, again, hold the people we vote for accountable. We have to hold them accountable. If they know that they got your vote no matter what you do, then of course they're going to ignore you. This is what Lawrence O'Donnell had to say about it before I get on out of here.
If you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them.
Because the way the Democratic Party is run now for quite a number of presidential cycles is they pick a nominee in a kind of half-assed process that doesn't really represent much of anybody, and then they tell everybody to just shut up. Don't bring up anything that will complicate life for your nominee. You know he's not for you on this. Why badger him? He's not going to be for you for reasons that you don't understand but are good reasons. Shut up. Turn off your brains.
If you don't show them you're capable of not voting for them, they don't have to listen to you. I promise you that. I worked within the Democratic Party. I didn't listen or have to listen to anything on the left while I was working in the Democratic Party, because the left had nowhere to go. If you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting.
Amen. That was before he turned into a shill for the same Democratic Party establishment elite. But that's neither here nor there, folks.